Hello, Kobe. Thanks for joining. We'll let some more people get on here before we get started. Welcome, Peter. Welcome, Brian. Yes, this will be put up on YouTube for replay, so you won't be missing. It's been a while since I've streamed, so this will be fun. Yeah, I had an echo in the background. Had to figure out which one of the platforms that I was getting the echo from. So yeah, we're streaming today from YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, as well as StreamYard's platform. So I plan to do these more frequently. I've kind of missed out on doing these, but it just kind of got to be tough along with running a podcast and all the other things that had going on, and then making time to spend with my daughter. So we'll be doing this more often. So hope everyone's having a good Friday. Thanks for joining. We'll just give this a little bit longer. We'll make sure that everyone is on that's going to join, although this will be recorded. So if you can't make it all the way through, then it'll be available. So yeah, awesome. Great to see everyone joining. Thanks for taking time. If you have any recommendations on times, let me know. I was kind of thinking based on what I've seen some other people doing with their streaming around lunchtime seems to be good, because when you stream in the evenings, it's not good for Europe and Asia. So kind of thinking if I do these like around noon Central, that maybe that'll help out for everyone. Awesome to see Angela Brown joining. Thanks for joining, Angela. Thanks for joining, Elvin. Thanks for joining, Show Clips, Sean W. and Padawan Forever. Thanks, Jessica. So we're going to go through this demo, and there'll be, this presentation, but there'll also be some Q&A too. So we'll have Q&A at the end of this too. So it's really great to be back streaming again. This was something I used to enjoy, but haven't done it in a long time. So it's good to be back. Good afternoon, Nathan. So hopefully, Angela, we'll run into each other again sometime soon at a conference. I've been thinking I need to make a trip down to Austin to see some friends, because sometimes when I'm down there for conferences, unless they're at the conferences, I don't get to see them. So I need to make a trip down there sometime. Hey, Chris, glad to see that you made it. Hey, Barbara, thanks for joining. Thanks, Saifala. Thanks for joining. Oh, awesome. Irremediable Evil. I'm glad you're enjoying the book. Glad I was able to help. And that was a lot of the reasons for creating the book. Was the book came out of my lecture that I gave at Dallas College each semester. First time I gave it was in January 2018. The other professors asked me to come share with their class. And so, any rate, I started sharing with the other classes and turned into, oh my gosh, it's my buddy Charles Schreier, Mr. Positivity. Good to see you on here. It was great seeing you at Hack Space Con. Thanks for joining, Moses. So yeah, it's this was a conference, was a lecture that turned into a conference talk. And one of the things I saw from that too, I was on the B-Sides DFW CFP review board back several years ago. I'm trying to think when it was, 2020 or 2021. But at any rate, one of the things they said was whenever people, if the talk's been given somewhere else, you may consider not accepting the talk. But one of the things I told them is the talk may have been given a million times somewhere else, but there's a lot of people that haven't had the chance to hear it. And I noticed that during the height of the pandemic, when all the conferences was virtual, I presented the Pentester Blueprint talk so many times, which ended up becoming the book. And part of the reason for it to become a book is I saw how many times people saw it. It was brand new to them. You can have people in your network that's going to see it and share your content or share the presentations, the videos of the presentations, but someone is not going to see it. But if you get that content in a bookstore, podcast platforms, or YouTube, then it's going to have a higher likelihood of people getting access to it. So that's one of the main reasons I did the book is to be able to get that out there. Selfish reasons was to help build my brand, to help my career, which it has helped a lot. But probably one of the best things that's best side effects is just all the people I've met from it. One of my missions is to mentor and help others. This is kind of something that became my mission and goal in 2018. I've always been a very competitive person, and kind of just to mention here, I've never been the best hacker, but always tried to be the best I could be. Was very competitive. And then when I started teaching in 2018, I just kind of thought, the world needs mentors and coaches. Why not play into my strengths? That is something that I'm way better at than other things I do. So teaching, I'm a good listener. I like to mentor. I like to help others. So I just started playing into that. And that's why I kind of put more of my focus on that. So let's see, we're about 8 after the hour. So we'll go ahead and get started. People join us. If they miss something, they can always catch it later. Hey, my buddy Darren Freddy just joined, and Darren is on my podcast next Friday, which will be released Friday morning, Central Time, 8 a.m. Central Time of next week. So you'll have to check that out. So Darren, if you notice, our good friend Angie Brown is on. So I guess we'll go ahead and get started. So thanks everyone for joining. So this workshop came out of one that I did for HackSpaceCon and for DFW SecCon. And I decided to do this virtually because a lot of people asked, where I posted up about the workshop, is this available online? Is this going to be recorded? And unfortunately it wasn't. So I thought, we should do this, recorded. One of the things, and live, because one of the things over the pandemic, there's been a lot of good virtual content, and we really need to keep that up because even past things are getting safer. If you're vaccinated, take precautions. Basically what your risk appetite is, you can go out in public, and go to conferences, but some people are immunocompromised. Hey, Michael Argo, thanks for joining. Michael and I actually met back in my consulting days. He was one of my customers at a pen test site. We met then and became friends and stayed in touch since. But at any rate, the virtual content is good, and people are in other places around the globe that can't attend. So that's one of the reasons I'm doing this, and one of the reasons I intend to do this periodically. One of the things, I've done several web app pen testing workshops, intro to pen testing workshops. So I figure it only makes sense to why don't we go ahead and stream these so that way people can access these, even if people are able to attend at the conferences. Sometimes maybe there's another workshop going on at the same time that they take. And so this is just a way for them to be able to attend and watch later on. So I have my CISSP, and then my most coveted, most proud certification is the OSCP, and then the SANS Web App Pen Testing certification. So my current role is Security Solutions Specialist and Evangelist at SCI, and a big shout out and thanks to them for supporting my community efforts. Fortunately, working for them, speaking, teaching workshops, my community stuff, attending conferences, one of my favorite things to do is part of my job. And having someone to send me around the globe to do those things is very, very awesome. So I'm an offensive security professional instructor. So I've been in security for over 19 years. Prior to that, I spent a little over 6 years as a sysadmin, which was very valuable in my security and pen testing career. I've been in offensive security for 11 years now. I'm a former adjunct instructor at Dallas College. I taught pen testing, web app pen testing, and I continue to teach workshops. Also, I'm the founder of DC 940, which is a local DEF CON group, and the Pwn School Project. I'm the concept creator and co-author of the Pentester Blueprint, starting a career as an ethical hacker, which we're discussing today. I saw the opportunity to create a workshop that would help people and add some things that I've learned since I wrote the book that help people career-wise. I was also featured in the Tribe of Hackers Red Team book, which gave me the opportunity to write for Wiley Publishing. They reached out to me and asked me if I need book ideas. And I love podcasting. And so please check out, subscribe, or follow, depending on the platform, to the Hacker Factory podcast and the Philip Wiley Show. These are available on all popular platforms. And they're one of the nice things about it too is it's a very good podcast for those that are wanting to get started in security. Maybe you're just started out in security. It's a good platform for that. So a lot of people get encouragement from it. They hear the different stories, and sometimes it's just proving to people that they can do it. And that's one of the things these stories do. So thanks for joining, Seth and Seekler. Thanks, Akil. And Bearded Bookworm, thanks for joining, everyone. So one of the things I like to share when I do presentations is my background, how I got into offensive security. And the reason I provide this, and one of the reasons I do my podcast, have the different guests on, is to share their stories, because some people, one of the things I like to show is that, whenever I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living. I was a power lifter. My friends told me I should be a pro wrestler. So I went to wrestling school. And during that time, I actually wrestled a bear. You can see over here on the right-hand side, that's actually me wrestling a bear. So I did that for a while. And then I got married, had to kind of find a lifestyle more conducive to, and career more conducive to, a pro wrestler. And one of the things that I don't regret not getting out of getting out of bear wrestling, because one of the things I see is a lot of my former friends and former people I wrestled, hearing their documentaries on their lives and how they didn't get to spend time with their children and their family. And that's just stuff that's invaluable. You just can't get that time back. So, and plus, not to mention, it's a lot more fun, in my opinion, to be a hacker than in sports entertainment. So at any rate, so I did that, and I had to get a job with benefits, health insurance, and all that, and full-time job. Working as a pro wrestler, I was wrestling 1 day a week, so I'd work as a bouncer to make enough money to make a living. And you see a lot of these wrestlers when they were starting out too, like Stone Cold Steve Austin was sleeping in his truck. They would buy food enough for a few days until they got the next paycheck. And so it's a really difficult life. So CAD drafting is how I found out about sysadmin work. So prior to being a CAD drafter, I had minimal to no exposure to computers. This was back in 92 or 93. Once I got into the CAD drafting field, a lot of times I would do some IT tasks that some of the IT people couldn't figure out, or we didn't have someone on site. Back when I was first getting into drafting, it wasn't long that Windows 95 came out. Trying to get Windows 95 to print correctly and all this, I was able to figure that out. I taught myself how to build computers, and then got a job as a sysadmin, because one time our company had a sysadmin come in to work on our servers. I was making $15 an hour at the time. We were being billed out at $30 an hour. And the sysadmin come in to work on our server, and he's being billed at $50 an hour. So using my limited math skills, I thought, this guy's making about $10 an hour more than me, and what he's doing looks a lot more fun. So that's where I did it. So basically through my career, I've kind of, once I got my foothold into drafting, I started following my passion. And that's how I got into, from sysadmin work, I found out about information security. I worked in network security for a little over a year, moved into application security. Application security is when I found out that my next job I wanted was to be a pen tester. So I managed our third-party pen tests. So we hired consultants to come in and do pen tests. I oversaw the scheduling and the remediation of those projects, as well as I got to do some web app vulnerability scans. So I started gaining some skills to be a pen tester, but not all those. Another point of encouragement here too is I applied for a job. My job at the mortgage company was coming to an end. The mortgage company was selling off parts of it. MetLife that owned us, MetLife Bank, MetLife said they were going to, since the mortgage industry wasn't doing well, they were going to sell off that part of the company. So that way their stakeholders are still seeing profits and getting paid dividends. And so when I got laid off or was about to get laid off, I started looking for jobs. I saw that Verizon had a Pentester role open. I applied for it. And what helped me get the job was because I was passionate about learning. I was passionate because I built my own, I had my own home lab. The hiring manager was one that was big on people being builders, not really so much focused on the breaking or hacking piece. He always encouraged us to learn how to build stuff. So if you understand the technology, you're able to hack into it. And we're going to get into more details of that. My good friend Darren on here, he's very well known for reading the manual. He's working on a pen test. Maybe it's a technology he's not familiar with. He'll read the PDF or the different documentation white papers on that technology to be able to understand it, to be able to perform an assessment on that technology. So basically, this is just kind of share my career path and encourage you. You can do this if you want to, you know, and don't give up. Hacking is not easy to learn. Pen testing is not easy, but if you put in the time and effort and you take your time, you'll be successful. Okay, welcome, Papa Shell. Papa Shell is one of my co-hosts of our DEF CON group in Denton, Texas. Awesome. See someone from UNT, another vote for Home Labs. So I used to share this slide with my students each semester. With great power comes great responsibility. I originally heard Uncle Ben tell Spider-Man that in one of his first Spider-Man movies. I always thought it was Uncle Ben's quote, but found out later it was Voltaire. And then someone, when I gave this presentation, said they thought it was maybe even someone else besides Voltaire. But I think it's a good one to share because when you're learning how to hack, there's lots of resources that you can practice legally. You don't want to get, any blemishes on your legal record. You don't want any offenses against you. So if you've got a criminal record, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to get jobs. I've known people that were developers, and this is not even working in security, that had a hard time finding jobs because, having a criminal background. So only hack if you have permission, even better written permission. Hacking without permission is illegal. So we're going to discuss some of the other areas that you can use to learn how to hack and be perfectly safe and not have to worry about getting any dings against your record. And also, too, you really want to start out with resources that are easier to learn to hack into to build up that skill set. It's like if you're going to be a football player, or you play any kind of sports, tennis player, runner, you don't start out at the highest level trying to compete. You're going to quit, give up, you're going to overtrain. So you need to start out with things that are easier. So finding a purposeful, vulnerable environment will help you learn how to do that. So we're going to discuss the what, why, and how of becoming a pen tester. So this first piece is really more from what come from the pen tester blueprint. We'll get in towards the second half, and it's going to tell you how to get experience that you could use to get a pen testing job without maybe you don't have the professional experience, but we're going to discuss things you can do to help out in that area. So pen testing is assessing security from an adversarial perspective using hacking tools and tactics and techniques and procedures, TTPs, also known as ethical hacking. So most people are going to understand this from ethical hacking. Pen testing sounds like you work for an ink pen factory testing pens. So that's kind of a little more difficult for people to understand. And I typically tell people I'm an ethical hacker, but the funny thing is you run into people that you'll tell them you're an ethical hacker and they said, is that such a thing? Is there such a thing? But, it's just one of these areas that's not very well understood, even with people in security. So security posture from an adversarial perspective gives you a better understanding of the security risk severity. Exploitable vulnerabilities are higher risk and higher priority for remediation, as well as justification for budget. Some vulnerabilities may be too expensive for the companies to remediate, but if it can be hacked into, then that gives them, it's a higher priority, and they realize and see that they should remediate these. Some cases people don't, they file risk acceptances, but that's a whole different topic there in itself. So why pen testing? Regulatory compliance really helped the pen testing field grow. When I got into pen testing, PCI compliance was fairly new. I would go to local meetups and I might be lucky to run into one or two, maybe three other pen testers. And now, if you go to our local meetups, Dallas Hackers Association, you'll see a room full of pen testers. And what's happened and helped this grow is mainly PCI, the payment card industry data security standard. And so this is like if your company's processing credit cards at a certain amount, mainly banks you'll see doing this. Credit card companies have to do this. Even some e-commerce companies have to go through this as well if they're processing at a certain level. So HIPAA for medical devices and healthcare providers, uh, they're starting to require uh, this type of pen tests and stuff for medical devices. This is becoming part of uh, a very needed area because pacemakers, insulin pumps, those could be hacked and hurt and cause injury to people. And so service organization control SOC 2. So technology services companies, if you're a SaaS based company or some other type of technology company, a lot of cases you have to be SOC 2 compliant for companies to do business with you. And then FINRA, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. And another reason why pen testing, there's a lot of fun opportunities. If you like a challenge, if you're someone that likes puzzles, you like CTFs, you like those type of things, you're very curious about trying how things work, this is probably going to be a good area for you. So pentesting jobs, synonymous terms and departments. So penetration tester is the long term of pen tester. Penetration tester is security consultants, analysts, and engineers. These are some of the roles sometimes that pen testers fall under. HR doesn't always have the exact title for every role in the company. And when you're looking for a job, look at the job descriptions. It will tell you it'll tell you a lot of cases on the job description, they'll tell you penetration tester nowadays. Even though your official company title may not be that, sometimes you have two titles, the HR title and your official title. So when you're looking for a job, it's important to know this. So other synonymous terms, we kind of mentioned ethical hackers, offensive security, which offensive security to me is one of the more explanatory terms. And then adversarial security is kind of a cool term that I've seen out there that's a good describer. Departments and pen testers work in roles. So departments that you see these pen tester roles in, threat and vulnerability management or vulnerability management, you'll see sometimes, and then you'll see some departments that may be offensive security. So these are some of the terminologies and things to know about when you're looking for a job. So pen testing skills are helpful in other areas. So you look at SOC analyst. If you understand malicious traffic, that's going to help you in your job. If you're a network security analyst or engineer, then understanding malicious traffic is going to help you there. Digital forensics and incident response. When you're responding and investigating an incident, the more you understand the hacking side of things, the better. Purple teams, where defensive and offensive collaborate to improve defenses. So this is one of my favorite newer areas of security is when the red team or blue team get together, the defenders and defenders get together and execute different scripts to see if they can be executed in the environment. So you want to make sure that, if it takes a while to mature your organization through the pen testing cycle. So you perform a pen test, then you remediate, and this takes time. And so if you're able to do things like purple teaming, where you get in there, you test these different hacking tools and make sure that they can't be executed on your endpoints in your environment, then you're going to take some of the tools out of the hands of potential attackers. So this is kind of one of those areas too that's kind of very educational for people who work on the blue team. When you can collaborate with the red team, you can see actually how these tools work. And during these processes, they work on trying to see if they can detect and block these different hacking tools and techniques. Then application security. This is where I found out about pen testing. And so one of the things is too, you can, moving into pen testing, you can be in any area. You can be on the blue team. Whenever I got into security, I started out as a sysadmin. Security roles weren't that well known. I worked for a mortgage company, and at the time I joined there in '98, they had, the network team managed the firewalls. They didn't have a dedicated security team at all. And so that started to grow and more companies started to add those. So you can start out help desks. A lot of cases I'll say is get your foot in the door no matter what. If you get on the help desk, it's going to be easier to get a job in security than not being in any kind of technology function at all. So just getting your foot in the door is going to be very helpful. So the different types of pen testing targets are going to be networks. This could be internal, external, and wireless applications, web app, API. APIs become very popular. Web apps have really gone in popularity. We used to have more of the thick client or binary apps out there. And so now the cloud and mobile API and web apps are more popular now. And so a lot of these are going to kind of determine where you kind of decide to start your role based on your experience. So hardware is very important for network hardware, IoT, ICS, OT devices, and medical devices. As we mentioned earlier, with some of the regulatory stuff, medical devices need to be tested to make sure that the person using these devices are harmed. I've done wireless pen tests before where you could see the ERs and ORs had medical devices connected to that Wi-Fi network. And so it's kind of scary to think that these things are connected to a Wi-Fi network. And if it's not secure, someone could perform a denial of service attack or attack that device, which could actually be keeping someone alive. So transportation, as we get into the autonomous self-driving vehicles, this is more important. Now that things are connected and APIs are connecting all of our different transportation modes. And recently, back around the end of last year or so, some of the very well-known bug hunters, they did they found an API that affected, I forget how many different automobiles, BMW, Tesla, several different vehicles. So these are areas that we need to protect. As technology evolves, there's going to be more types of targets to test. One of the things not mentioned on here is some of your Web3 technologies, some of the things around crypto, AI, and these things are coming about. As technology comes about, we definitely need to make sure that we're testing these. And so you can have one of the most people in buildings, you can have the most stringent, strict security, but if someone clicks on the wrong thing, then attackers have access. If you're not guarding your buildings or your server room, then someone could get into an open terminal and gain access. So it doesn't take lead hacking skills. When there's an open terminal and someone's logged in, all you have to do is get access. Hey, Pony, thanks for joining. And so types of testing depth or steps of a pen test. So vulnerability scan, and you see that I have this red, not a pen test. These are kind of parts of a pen test or standalone functions, but they're not a pen test. There are some companies out there, either by ignorance or just being shady, they'll go out and run vulnerability scans, put in a pen test report, and sell that as a pen test. And that's not. Some cases, they may have just got into pen testing because they didn't have the proper training and they didn't know any better. They think that's what a pen test is. So vulnerabilities are important, and this is one of the things you want to do in your organization on a reoccurring basis because it takes time to perform pen tests. So if you can find these vulnerabilities ahead of the pen test and remediate those, then that's going to make your process run smoother. And so vulnerability assessments, this is kind of the next level. So vulnerability assessments, this is like vulnerability scanning plus validating those vulnerabilities. And this also includes using other vulnerability scanners. So some vulnerability scanners will catch things that maybe the other one doesn't. Maybe it takes like an update or version for the other one to catch up. I've done pen tests before where I was using Nessus and the client was using Nexpose, and I found things that they didn't find with Nexpose with Nessus. So running multiple vulnerability scanners can be a good thing to do. I've seen some very well-known and very highly skilled pen testing firms that they'll run something like OpenVAS along with Nessus. And so you want to validate all those vulnerabilities, and finding the vulnerabilities during a vulnerability assessment is not always about the tools. You can use manual techniques. So ways to find those. So you're trying to find anything and put into your report. So one of the things about a vulnerability assessment, we're not hacking into it or exploiting it. So the next level here is the pen test. So this is basically a vulnerability assessment plus exploitation, also known as hacking. So red team operations, also known as adversary emulations. I like to make sure to show the difference there. Sometimes offensive security gets generalized as red teaming when the true terminology came from adversary emulation. So when you're discussing this with someone, make sure you know which one they're talking about. So this basically is kind of like testing the blue team. This is attack simulations and less restrictive in scope. A lot of cases, one of the things that's happened with pen testing and a big gap with the compliance pen testing is there's so much little budget, and a lot of the budget's put on for PCI pen testing, so things get missed. Sometimes they don't include social engineering or physical assessments, which are needed, and they're only doing a sampling, a small scope. So it's a good idea to do all of that. And kind of the difference between an adversary emulation and pen test, a pen test, you're looking for all the vulnerabilities that can be exploited and trying to exploit all those. With a adversary emulation, you're trying to find something that will lead to a breach. There's a control group that knows this is going on, typically like CISO. You don't always let the blue team manager know, because some cases they're going to tip off their team because they don't want to look bad. And you want to make sure this is like a real world scenario. So when people see that, you see the reaction time. Are they reporting to the IR team? I've seen some cases where people were going through a red team operation or adversary emulation, and they actually brought in the IR team to investigate. And that's great. They caught it. They brought in someone. And that's one of the things there that you're not really getting from a pen test, but you need to do both of those. Pen tests is probably the most important as your organization matures. Then red team operations are good to add in there. So they both work well together. And as I mentioned, the full scope pen tests of yesteryear are not happening as much now, and we need that. And so this kind of helps, doing a full scope pen test where you're doing physical and social engineering is very important. Yeah, we have one question here. We'll go ahead. Good question that we'll go ahead and answer here while we're going through the presentation. It says, do you recommend vulnerability management and analyst roles before pen test, or you can work 1 to 2, 3 years as a SOC analyst? It's really up to you. And I would say sometimes, it doesn't have to be planned. If you're working somewhere as a SOC analyst, or you're working in some other vulnerability management role, apply for those roles. You just don't know when you're going to get the chance. I had a student one semester that was really ambitious coming in to the beginning of class. He said, I want to be as good a pen tester as you, but I don't want to take that long. Is that possible? I said, yeah, it's just a matter of time, the level of effort and time you're wanting to put into it, basically, and how much faster you're able to learn. You can get in those roles quicker. So don't let you, and I kind of told the guy, yeah, you can do that, which, encourage him. I believe in encouraging people. And then he came up 2 weeks later to have to read the textbook to be a pen tester. And I kind of told him, gave him my honest opinion. I said, well, you have to spend more time in the lab, more with the hands-on. But, he's really someone that I really wasn't sure how well they would do, because, didn't want to read the textbook. A year later, he got an internship as a pen tester. So one of the students that I least likely thought would get the role got a role. And so that's one of the things that you got to go for it. You just have to try, have a backup plan, have a plan in place where you're doing something to get your foothold in, but you can jump right into a pen testing role if you know it, if you learn it well enough. We have one of our community members that was former law enforcement, and on the Hacker Factory podcast, he was kind of a retired law enforcement officer, or either that he retired or took time off. And all he did was study for a year. And his very first job was a pen testing role. I have a former student that she was a mother. She had like a degree in computer science, took several development classes, and then her very first technology role ever was getting a job as a pen tester. So you just have to apply for those jobs. So some people will tell you that you need to start on help desk, or you need to be desktop support or sysadmin. You don't have to do those things. Now, the skill set is very important. So the skill set of someone that's like a system administrator or something is helpful. So very good question there. Yeah, let's see. So Pony says, I've heard of people doing SOC before transferring. Yeah, there's actually Tinkersec. That's Tinkersec that was, kind of got his start in our local community. He was on a SOC, and then one of the things he took advantage of is learning what that malicious traffic looked like during pen test. He paid attention, was able to do what's similar to what we call purple teaming now, and it's just a good learning experience. So always leverage that. If you're in a company, they have a pen test team, see if you can shadow the pen test team. See if you can shadow them. Some companies have cross training or opportunities that they could work with other groups for like a week or two. See if there's any opportunities like that. If you're in college, try to get an internship. If you're an intern within a company, see if you can shadow the pen test teams. So Angela says, Philip, what was the best advice you've received in this industry? So I would say the best advice I could give, well, the best advice I was given was from my first pen test manager when I was consulting was, basically to learn the technology, learn how it works before learning how to hack. So that, learning that was very important. The best advice that I would give and have been given in recent years, one of the things I share a lot is networking. Networking is the best thing you can do for your career. If you're actively networking, you're going to have an easier time finding a job than the people that aren't. You could be the best hacker in the world, the best pen tester, but if no one knows who you are, no one has access to your resume, they can't find your resume, can't find you, then it's going to be hard. But people know you, they can share opportunities with you, they can get your resume to hiring managers and so forth. So some of the specializations we discussed the different type of targets. So you can also specialize in those targets, or you can not be, or you can be a generalist where you're basically testing several different technologies, and then you can kind of figure out where you want to specialize. The thing about specializing is that's the one way to really get better at pen testing is if you find an area that you are better at that comes easier for you, something that's more interesting, you spend more time on that, not trying to be good at all of it, then you can specialize. You see some people that are really good at AD, Active Directory, and that's what they spend all their time in, really good at cloud or application, and they focus on that instead of trying to learn everything. But it's kind of good to learn the different areas and see what you like first, so you know where you want to specialize in, spend more effort in. So Elvin says, what type of methodology should we apply to a red team? So for red teaming more specifically, Joe Vest has a book out there on red teaming. Uh, Also, there's some good uh, courses out there from Rostamaus for his 0 point security. They have a red team course out there, and so does Sands. But a lot of that is it gets more into with pen testing. You have the penetration testing execution standard, and kind of one of the rule of thumbs they kind of follow sometimes with red teaming is using the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain is kind of a path on how they do the attacks. But yeah, Joe Vest's book that's out there, I forget who the co-author is, but that book shows on how to set up a red team and probably be some good methodology stuff out there. There haven't seen a lot of good books on it, but the Hackers Playbook version 3 actually covers more red team. So that one will be a good one to check out. So we have another question. Do you need to know Python, C++, SQL for some others? They want to know much more for the basics. You don't have to know that getting started, but it helps. One of the things that I've had a lot of different guests on my show. Uh, Alyssa Knight's probably one of the best hackers I know, and she's very successful, but she doesn't code. And so you don't have to know that. So I'd say if you want to get in the field, get your foot in the door and learn how to code along the way. There are some great benefits to knowing how to code and also knowing SQL, especially if you're going to do web app pen testing. It's really important to know that. So get your foot in the door and then learn, because what happens is when you put these self-imposed restrictions on yourself, you're going to be spending your time trying to do Python, and that's learning to program, and that's a whole skill set on its own, and it's going to prevent you from learning to pen test. So get started learning to pen test and learn how to script or code along the way. So there's different types of knowledge of a target. And so the black box, also known as a blind pen test, this is limited knowledge of your target. This is more of an attacker approach. The white box, also known as crystal box, is detailed system info or accounts for like a web application. Sometimes this is also referred to as an assumed breach, having access to the system because you really need to test. Say your environment's really tough. Maybe someone can't, it's near impossible to hack in to your environment. But what happens with someone that either has access to the system, either because they're an employee, a contractor, maybe they're a threat actor that bought some leaked credentials and they're reusing those. So you need to test authenticated. Plus, there's some things that you may be able to, you want to make sure that someone at a regular user level can't elevate privileges and stuff, so you need to do that. And gray box is partial knowledge of the target. This is giving you like subnets. And so this is closer to what real world is like, but it's definitely important to use all these methods. So even if you're doing a pen test, that is a gray box pen test. Try to see if you can hack in without, you know, uh, credentials or whatever. So make sure you try that. And then when you're doing the pen test with the different levels of credentials to make sure that those accounts don't have more access than what they should have, practicing the least security standard. So we got another question here from Ashley. So how do you prove to a company that you know what you're doing, even though you haven't had experience as an official pen tester yet? That's great advice. And the second half of this presentation, we're going to get into that. So doing stuff like hack the box, documenting that, doing bug bounties, getting on platforms like Cobalt.io, which is pen test as a service, which if you can pass their little challenge, then you can get in. So what I was getting hung up on there is least privilege. So that least privilege was the terminology I was looking for. So yeah, you're able to prove it that way. And we're going to show you how to leverage that a little later on here. So that was a great question, and we'll address that in more depth coming up here soon. So all these different types of testing are important. So becoming a pen tester, the technology skills. So the skills that you need is network and operating systems, especially Windows and Linux, and understanding security. You need to understand the security before you can exploit the security. The better you understand the technology, the better you're going to be at hacking into that technology. So applications, if you're wanting to be an application pen tester, or hardware. So basically understanding the technology and the security surrounding that technology is a good way to simplify this. So you're wanting to have like sysadmin level skill set to Windows and Linux. So if you get like a command line access or a shell to a system, if you know the command line, you're going to be a lot more successful in your attempts. You can Google the stuff and look it up, but it's definitely going to help the more you understand. So the way to gain these hacking skills, this is where I was at. When I got my first job, I had taken a couple pen testing classes. I took Foundstone's Ultimate Hacking course, which was very popular back in the day. And I took the Certified Ethical Hacking course, but I really didn't have my hacking skills down. So I took the courses. I didn't really practice the hacking skills and things that I learned. So you need to take class, you can learn these skills through classes, conferences, different security organization clubs and meetups, like your DEF CON groups, your OWASP groups, your hacker associations, and then self-study, building a home lab, online labs like TrackMe, Hack the Box. There's a lot of great YouTube videos out there, tutorials, and some good blogs on there. You can find a lot of good stuff on Medium and Twitter. So developing the hacker mindset. So this is going to be built by practicing in your labs, learning how different exploits work, learning how to exploit different vulnerabilities, different security configurations. So this is going to help you. So the more you do it, the more you develop that hacker mindset. And so this is developed through repetition and time. So the more you practice something, once you've brute forced a password, did a password spray, and you see where there are vulnerabilities, these could be used in those areas, you kind of develop that mindset, because as a pen tester, you're going to be performing research as you're doing the pen test, looking for exploits. And so as you build up that kind of repository, keeping notes of this stuff, as you learn these different techniques, you find a vulnerability, use something like Notion, Evernote, these different note-taking tools to keep track of that. So that way, when you come back to it, you don't have to research and look it up again. That way you can more quickly do that. And one of the things we do as pen testers, we keep our own little notebook of different techniques and tools and stuff. So the formula for the pen tester blueprint is technology knowledge plus security knowledge plus the hacker knowledge and mindset. So this was kind of expand a little bit more on this, because before it was the hacker mindset, and this is really the knowledge and the mindset to be more accurate. So this is another good question around coding here. So you need to know more to read code than actual coding? Yes. So once you understand, one of the things you'll do, and one of the things I learned through going through the OSCP, is to modify exploits. So it doesn't take it takes some skill to do that, but it's a lot easier to learn how the code works. So understanding how the code works so you can modify exploits is definitely is needed. So that's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. So Pentesting Education. So developing your own personal pentester blueprint. So you need to take a skills inventory, figure out all the things that you do know about technology, and then do a gap analysis. Find the things that you're missing out on, and then create a plan to address these skills gaps. And so education learning resources, SANS is a great resource, OffSec, formerly Offensive Security, Anti-Siphon by Black Hills Information Security Group. I highly recommend their courses. And one of the things they do is they have pay what you want on some of these, or pay what you can, because sometimes people don't have, even though they're more expensive courses or not that expensive, maybe your budget doesn't allow for it. But they do a lot of great things for the community, and I highly recommend the training. Virtual Hacking Labs is one you don't hear much about anymore, but that one was one that I found out about when I first started teaching at Dallas College. Someone recommended this to my students to prepare for the OSCP. So I actually signed up for it, used it. I typically try to vet things that I recommend, especially in my class, recommending to students or people I'm mentoring. I like to go through and vet those products. Pentester Academy is part of INE now, but I still believe they are operating separately. INE, formerly eLearn Security, has some content. 0 Point Security, if you're wanting to learn red teaming, it's one of the best out there. They have an online lab that you can practice the red teaming on. And then Pentester Lab, this is a really good one if you're wanting to be a web app pen tester. They go beyond like some of the resources where you're able to test the security. They're showing you if there's a way to get a shell to that system, get system control. They're going to show you how to do that. And then TCM Security is another good resource. Hack the Box Academy, and also Try Hack Me. And so some of these are offer some form of free. Most of these are not free content out there, but Try Hack Me has a certain level of free resources. So free learning resources, Bug Crowd, Hacker 101, hackingtutorials.org. Integrity has some good content out there. Bug bounty companies are trying to recruit people into their platform. So it's, really smart for them to share information on how to pen test. Hackingtutorials.org has a lot of great tutorials on different hacking tools and techniques. And the Web Security Academy from Portswigger. This is a really great resource there. That's from the people that created Burp Suite. And it's actually kind of, instead of updating their book, the Web Application Hackers Handbook, they turned around and put everything online and have a very extensive lab. You can even get a certification. So the certification is $100, but you will have to use Burp Suite to take the exam. But whenever you figure out $100 for the exam plus $500 for another $400 for Burp Suite, $500 is not that expensive for a certification. And then Try Hack Me has a lot of free content. Try Hack Me is a really good place to get started. So pen testing certifications, the entry level ones here, we have the CEH, Pentest Plus, EJPT, and then you get into more of the intermediate ones like PNPT from TCM Academy, and then the GPen from SANS, the OSCP from OffSec, and then the Web App Pen Testing Cert from SANS, and ECPPT version 2 from INE, and then you get your advanced certifications here, GXPN, OSCE from Offensive Security, and then for Web App, you have the SANS Web App Pen Testing Cert. Offensive Security just came out with one that is a more normal level, or not, I wouldn't even call it entry level. They kind of consider it entry level, but it's really a more real world pen testing cert. The OSWE is doing source code analysis, more advanced pen testing. OSWA is more practical web app pen testing. And then also, I didn't list on here, but they have a bug bounty cert through Hack the Box, which is basically a web app pen testing cert, which is really good, as well as the Burp Suite. It's also the cloud, the GCPN from SANS, and then red team certification. So the CRTO from 0 Point Security, and then the Sec 565 Red Team Operations and Adversary Emulation. No cert yet, but I would imagine there'll be a certification to come along soon after. So pen testing certifications. So to determine which certification to get, research job listings to see which certifications are more in demand. CEH and Pentest Plus or DoD Directive 8570 certifications, so they can be helpful for government jobs, whether you're working directly for the government or through contractors or consulting. And certification tips. One of the biggest things here, tip I'll give you as far as certifications is learn the skill. Don't just prepare to pass the exam. If you just prepare to pass the exam, you're not going to gain the skills. And when it's time to go through an interview, there's a good chance you're not going to remember what you learned. So you want to learn this well enough that when you go into the test, then when you get some kind of trick questions or certain types of challenges, if it's a practical exam, then you're going to be better prepared to pass that exam. So make sure you're learning it, because later on, you've got to go back and learn it again. So home labs. So this could be as granular as you want. You could have like your everyday use system. You can put vulnerable VMs on there, test from there, or you can get as complex as having physical routers and switches, or you can even take like multiple Raspberry Pis and set up your environment. Vulnerable VMs like the Metasploitable series, then VulnHub has a lot of great resources there. Also, so you can, for your hacking system, you'll have like the virtual system that you're going to use for your hacking. So physical hardware, hacking OS. So your hacking OS, Parrot or Kali, Windows Commando VM or Flare VM by Mandiant are really great for Windows. A lot of times people underestimate the Windows tools when they have a lot of good administrative tools that can be used on a pen test. Online lab environments, TryHackMe and Hack the Box, Proving Grounds by OffSec, Anti-Siphon's Cyber Range, over-the-wire CTF for learning Linux hacking, and then under-the-wire CTF for Windows. So the Windows option there, you can learn some PowerShell, how to use some of the PowerShell tools, and that's a great resource. So some books out there, a hands-on introduction to hacking by Georgia Weidman, The Hacker's Playbook 2 and 3. As I mentioned earlier, version 3 is more geared towards red teaming. So if you want to learn more about red teaming, that's a good one there. The Web Application Hacker's Handbook, Discovering and Exploiting Security Flaws, and then Operator Handbook and the Red Team Field Manual, which there's been an update to the Red Team Field Manual. And these are really great resources to show you how to do different types of things related to Nmap syntax, could be different command line tools and OSINT tips and tricks. So those are really good resources just for a good quick reference guide. And the last half of this is the pen testing experience and how to get it. So some of the tools you're going to need to learn how to use is vulnerability scanners, the pen testing operating systems, the pen testing tools, which you're going to see installed on Parrot OS or Kali Linux, and then web application pen testing tools. So you need to learn these hacking tools while you're going on, because one of the things is once you get an interview, if you're able to discuss how to use these tools and kind of explain how you use them in lab environments, a lot of times this is what the interviewing managers or the people, maybe not always the interviewers, they could be people on the team interviewing you. They're looking for your level of skills and your exposure to these tools. So understand how to use them so you can explain those. So networking skills are very important if you're wanting to be a network pen tester. Operating systems, you want Windows and Linux skills as a sysadmin level. And so hacking and pen testing skills and reverse engineering. Reverse engineering is a good skill set to have, being able to reverse engineer APKs for like Android devices or Java jar files. Sometimes you can find hard-coded credentials to databases and other resources in those. Hands-on pen testing experience. So educational lab environments. So we're making sure to say educational lab environments because these are not real world environments, but they've got actual real world type vulnerabilities you can exploit. So CTFs are good. Some of the best people that I know, Papa Shell can attest to that because we've had like one of our members from our community was really good at CTFs. Now he's working as a pen tester. Commander from the Dallas community is really good at CTFs, and he's a really good hacker too. So some people downplay the need for understanding CTFs, but it can be very helpful. Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, and your home lab using vulnerable VMs. So getting in and gaining that pen testing experience. As you're gaining that experience, you're able to document this. You can do write-ups on the different vulnerable VMs. You can do walkthrough videos. And as you're doing this stuff, you're gaining this knowledge that would be helpful on an interview. So hands-on pen testing experience. So we're talking real world environments here. Bug bounties. So this may be a development environment, but it's still real world, because a lot of cases in web app pen tests, you're testing in a development environment or a pre-dev environment or a user acceptance testing environment. So bug bounties are crowdsourced pen tests. So BugCrowd, HackerOne, Synac, and Integrity. And then you have your pen testing as a service. So Cobalt and Synac are really more pen testing as a service. So bug bounties, you only get paid when you find vulnerabilities, but the pen test is a service, and actually BugCrowd does offer some of that as well, and I believe HackerOne. So this is where you are giving a pen test to perform. With Cobalt, they pay like $1,500 per pen test, and it's contract. So you may, as you get good, the more you do for them, the more pen tests you get. And so as you're doing any of these items here, pro bono and low cost pen tests for nonprofits and small businesses, you can do it for free, or maybe even charge like a small fee. So at least you're doing it professionally. So you're getting paid for it. So you can say that you've done paid pen tests. And then CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exposures. We're going to dive into this a little bit more, but I can't emphasize enough is getting started with these bug bounties, pen testing as a service, because I've known other people that I've recommended to Cobalt that they went on to full-time pen testing roles after that. $1,500 is not a lot of money for a pen test for a pen tester, but once you gain those skills, you can make a lot more money. So the CVE definition, this is kind of a list that's kept by MITRE and some of these other organizations, where it's a list of different CVE IDs, and vulnerability scanners will show these. And there it shows how the vulnerability is exploited. It also has like lists to the people, organizations that found these CVEs. So if you're able to go out and find these CVEs, find these vulnerabilities that no one has known about. Some cases, you hear 0 days. So a 0 day could be submitted and get a CVE. So these, in my opinion, are a bigger deal than having a certification. If you've got CVEs to your name, a lot of pen testers don't have them. I don't have any CVEs to my name, but if you have a CVE, that's going to help you. I've seen several people in the cybersecurity community get jobs because they had CVEs. So at any rate, some good resources here is Bobby Cook, aka Boku. Beginner's Guide to ODay and CVE AppSec Research can be found on his blog, which is a really good resource. And then Joe Helly was one of the ones that really, also known as the mayor, brought my attention to CVEs and how this is valuable for people trying to break in to the industry. He was playing around and found some CVEs, and what he was doing was finding free and open source hotel reservation softwares, downloaded in his environment, installed it, performed a pen test against it, found vulnerabilities, reported, and got CVE numbers. So these CVEs you can actually put on your resume in your LinkedIn. And what's even nice about LinkedIn is you're able to put the links to it under publications, and people can go click on that link, see the CVE, and then actually see that you're credited for that CVE. And Joe's got several other Medium posts that he's wrote up about finding CVE. So this is a good place to put some time and effort into. So demonstrating and documenting skills. So doing write-ups on CTF, Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, articles and blog posts on GitHub, Medium, and other platforms. Medium is a good platform because it has that social element to it. People that are looking for certain types of content can find each other. You can find other great content yourself on there. It's a good way for people to see your content. And even if people are not really seeing your content, then you can share the links to those write-ups on your resume or your LinkedIn profile. And then the CVE IDs list under publications on LinkedIn and your resume. Do tool and technique demos, that you're doing walkthroughs and creating videos on YouTube. Scripts or programs that you've come up with, put that on GitHub. Even if you find something that you've modified, added extra capabilities to it, then that's something that you could put on there. because people see these scripts. If you're writing scripts to automate your tasks, that's something good to share, because hiring managers are going to uh, see how you think. And because some cases there's, you know, people are experienced pen testers that aren't good at scripting and coding, but if you can share this on a GitHub, then that's going to be a great way to show your skill set. Build a personal brand. We're in a time now where personal branding is like what I'd refer to as the golden age, or just kind of a peak time to get into it. I've seen a lot of people in the industry that started out as content creators and they got jobs as pen testers. Some of them were writing or doing video walkthroughs and stuff, or educational content just to teach themselves, share on YouTube, and potential employers can see your presentation skills, your thought process. So streaming, doing the stuff on Twitch. There's a lot of people out there that stream on Twitch. They'll get on Hack the Box and do walkthroughs. So there's different platforms you can share these videos on: YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And then also writing. So a lot of people forget sometimes that writing is one of the original content creation types out there. Public speaking, conferences, cybersecurity meetups, webinars, and podcasts. I've seen people at our local DEF CON 214 meetup do a presentation. Was a recent college graduate, did a talk on malware analysis, and a hiring manager from Citibank was in the audience, asked for his resume, and he got hired. I mean, he basically kind of did a technical interview unknowingly. And this social media on LinkedIn and Twitter and some of the other platforms and Discords, just get out there sharing out there. People can find you. You see people that have built really big audiences on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is where the hiring managers are going to be. Twitter is a good place to learn from and connect with the practitioners, but LinkedIn is more for professional networking. So kind of continue on here. LinkedIn as the professional networking, cybersecurity groups, your ISSA, your ISACA, ISC squared groups, your DEF CON groups, OWASP chapters, and college clubs. So when you're going to these meetings, make sure to network with people, get to know people. I usually get a lot of people, especially back when I was teaching at Dallas College, asking if I had any entry-level pen testers, and I knew people in the community that knew their backgrounds and experience, and I would recommend them as well. So people in the community like to help each other. So if they know your skill set, what you're wanting to do, then people can help you more. Conferences are great places to learn as well as network. Then online communities like Discord and Slack. We have a great community on our DC 940 Slack out there. I mean, our Discord. So feel free to check us out there. And then Twitter is another good resource. Twitter is where I get a lot of my content or ideas from people on how to, perform different techniques. That's usually where people post their tools and stuff. So I found a lot of great security professionals out there that I've learned a lot from through Twitter. So job hunting skills, tips: prepare for the interviews. Make sure you prepare for it. Don't go in not prepared. Things like the OWASP top 10, even though it may be a network pen testing job, those are the type of vulnerabilities you get asked about because they're very common and they don't change as often, just different ways that they're performed. Be able to explain the basics like the through TCP handshake and OSI model, because you'll find someone in management, maybe they hadn't pen tested in a long time, or maybe they just work in security but never pen tested, but they'll ask you some of the more basic type questions. So just make sure to prepare. And Banjo Crashland, aka Jason Blanchard from Black Hills, has a great playlist out there on InfoSec job hunting. So he shows how to use different social engineering and OSINT techniques, how to modify your resume to help you get a job, and just basically networking skills. Everyone I've talked to that's used that has gotten some good out of it. So I highly recommend that. And then Jason Haddix has a good video. He was on NahamSec's live recon stream, and they actually had an episode where he was showing how to write a resume, doing something like some of these commercial products to write a nice looking resume. He was using something like Google Sheets. No, it wasn't Google Sheets. It's actually Google Slides to create a very nice looking resume, and how to document different things from bug hunting and all that, how to build a good resume. So that I highly recommend, not only for the formatting, but just the tips he gives on on how to prepare a resume and how to find a job. So we're down towards the end here. So tried to get through this a little quicker because normally this is closer to a 1.5 hour uh, presentation, but wanted to get through here a little bit quicker. I'm gonna scroll down, see if we have any questions. So Sarah asked, for a home lab, would you recommend a particular OS? One of the things I would say is if you're not familiar with Linux, you need to learn Linux. You can install some of the hacking tools in Windows, but ultimately you're going to have Linux too. If you're wanting to learn web app pen testing, then you have a little more freedom on what platform you're going to use the test with. I would always keep like a Kali Linux VM or Parrot OS VM because there's a lot of tools on there that you don't have to worry about installing directly on your system. But running Burp Suite works great within Windows. It works great within Linux, Mac OS. And when you get in some of the enterprise environments, you'll have to have it on Windows to be able to connect to Active Directory for some applications. So I would recommend, trying to learn Linux and Windows pretty well. Mac OS is a good skill to have, but from actual having to use a Mac OS platform, you don't necessarily have to, but I like it myself because there used to be some problems with Windows using open socket or raw sockets. So, but yeah, I would learn how to use all the different platforms, get familiar with it, because one of the things when it comes to some of these pen testing tools, you can install it just about any platform. But one of the things you run into is OSs like Linux, Kali Linux, and Parrot they have some of the prerequisite code and packages installed on there that makes it easier to install the hacking tools. Sometimes you try to install it straight to Ubuntu or Arch Linux or these other distros. Sometimes it could be very hard to get installed and you spend more time trying to install tools and actually using it. So Ashwin said is getting ready to take the EJPT exam soon. Yeah, that's awesome. Good luck. That's a pretty good one. That's a really good, out of the ones that are not really so much practical, you do have to have some practical knowledge. So that's a really, really good certification. Yeah. So Papa Shell was mentioned earlier, Wheatley, one of the people from our community. He's a CTF wizard. I mean, it's some of the things that people don't do if they're not doing CTFs. They're not really dealing with cryptography and stuff. And so, yeah, that's some of the cases they miss out. So yes, if anyone misses this, the deck will be available. And I tell you what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to share from my website. I've put the presentations up so you can go to my website. Yep. And so there, you can find it there. So if you go on that, there's actually one of my API workshops, API through external attack surface management talks. It's on there. So that's on there. So if you missed it, it's on there. The recording will be available, but yeah, it's nice to be able to go through and find the slides. So Morgan, what would EJPT and Plus do for me? Certifications are going to help a lot of times get noticed, get your foot in the door. You can get into pen testing without those certifications, but then you're really going to have to make sure you're really working on the networking. You're able to, record some walkthrough videos, create some content, prove to people you have those skills, but they're just kind of good to help get your foot in the door. Yeah, Larry had a good comment there. That's a good tool, and it's really evolved where there was some limitations at first, but it's really, really gotten good. Let's see. Sean said any recommendations? Black Hills Information Security, all the folks there. Banjo Crashland, John Strand, BB King, Daft Hack. Those are really great resources. Jason Haddix is another good one to follow. Naham Sec. Yeah, actually, if you go check out my follow, I did do a follow Friday, and I just tweeted out a bunch of people. So one of the things I do is I just kind of find some accounts that I follow that are really good in certain areas, and then like Trusted Sec, Dave Kennedy is a great one to follow. Tim Medine from Red Siege. So there's some really good ones out there. I mean, it's really where I get all my resources nowadays. So I got another Mac lover. Yes, macOS terminal. Yeah, it's really nice. It's just, especially when one of the things, whenever you can work in the same OS as you're writing reports, sometimes that makes it easier. And one of the things too, if you have like one of the things, I'll go to this next screen here, is feel free, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, Twitter, connect with me. There's the link to my YouTube channel. I've got a new podcast out there that I don't have listed up here. It's the Philip Wiley Show. It can be found on Spotify and YouTube. I'm actually have those in a video format on Spotify and YouTube. So check those out. If you have questions that you didn't think of now, feel free to reach out to me. So what's your favorite? I have to say, Mac OS is my favorite. As far as Linux distributions, it's kind of a tie between Parrot OS and Kali Linux. Okay, yes. Yeah, Morgan said, I should clarify. Sorry, would it be possible to get a job with those certs and good lab experience? Yes, it would be very possible. I know some people from a guy that was a pool cleaner that had EJPT and got a job. So yeah, those what the certifications are going to do. And when you take advantage of learning while you're getting those certifications, it's going to give you the skills, but it's also going to give you, a check mark on your resume, that's going to help you get your foot in the door. And certifications are really more important when you're getting started out. I don't know if they meant CEH. But yeah, a good starting point from there, if you're, I would say, getting into some of the more practical hands-on training, make sure you're spending time and try Hack Me and Hack the Box to develop those hacking skills. Ways to combat imposter syndrome. I've been thinking about ways to make helpful content, but sometimes feel like I have knowledge that others in the field would find. Yeah, one of the things is, yeah, I still run into imposter syndrome myself, but one of the things I've kind of done to deal with that is I know that there are some people out there that are better than me, that know more. First thing is, we just really shouldn't compare ourselves to others. We describe things in a way other people don't, and some people understand that better. Some people relate to us more. So one of the things I've just kind of come away with is, when I give my presentations and stuff, people seem to get something good from it. As long as that happens, I'll continue to do that. But yeah, there's, if you look on YouTube, a lot of some of my friends in the industry, Chloe Mistagi has done stuff on imposter syndrome. So yeah, just in practice presenting, practice if you're having imposter syndrome and it's just writing, practice, whether it's writing videos, public speaking, practice is what helps. That's probably the thing that's helped me the most, is the repetition, doing it over and over again. I'm by far not the best, but I'm passionate. I love to help other people and share, and that's what I'll continue to do. So yeah, just practice, continue to practice. Yeah, thanks for joining us, C. Lopez. So like the knowledge you get from CCNA or Network Plus are good. If you're wanting to get like a blue team job, that's going to be more helpful. But as far as a pen testing role, you don't necessarily have to have that. Getting the skills, having that knowledge is going to be helpful. Well, thanks everyone for spending your lunch with me, and we'll have to do this again sometime. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed this. And I guess we will go ahead and wrap up for the day. And this will be available on my YouTube channel for further viewing, as well as the slide deck I shared. You can check that out. So thanks everyone for joining. And make sure to subscribe and to my new podcast and the Hacker Factory podcast. I'd much appreciate it. Yes, I actually going to be at the RISIS conference coming up, and I've actually done a presentation for RISIS. I really really love that group. It's a great group. Love what everyone's doing there. Uh, Eric Bellardo is a friend of mine, as well as some of the other folks. So thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend.